Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the organizers, for the invitation and for your welcome, the way you have hosted us in these few hours, because we have been here just a few hours, but we feel really well hosted and really welcome. It's kind of difficult to explain in very few minutes the main pillars of our system and the current events in terms of affordable housing in the city of Barcelona and in Spain in general. First of all, because probably you have noticed it, English is not my native tongue, and I don't have much time. And our systems, even though they have many similarities, they are different to some respects. So I will throw a few figures. I will talk about data in order to be able to relate a little bit to the particularities of our situation. In general terms, we are having a moment right now of declining salaries and rising rental prices. Probably nothing new here in Ireland either. But this in urban areas, it really means that a great part of the population is being pushed out of their neighborhoods because they cannot meet the standards of the prices that are being demanded right now in the private market. The next two figures probably they will be a little bit different of what is going on or has been going on here in Ireland. The balance between public, cooperative, and limited profit housing and purely market housing in Spain in general terms is 1% against 99%. So almost all provision is being done by the market. And the relationship between ownership and rental nowadays is 85 ownership, 15% rental, but it has been even worse than that because in the past we have had less than 10% of rental. So the market and the power of the non-market forces is very different to the situation in other member states of the European Union. As far as distribution of competences, this is important. We have a three-level system. We never say in Spain that we are a federal state, but we are a federal state. So we have a federal government that is entitled to pass the main legislation pieces, which means that they decide on property, on mortgages, and on the financial market, which are three main pillars of the whole game. The regional governments and parliaments, they have the power to pass laws on housing policies and on housing as a right. And the local authorities, like we, the city of Barcelona, we have the town planning competences, and we are the main responsibles for social and affordable housing provision. So this is a very unequal balance because we have many obligations and we don't have the tools in order to meet the objectives. And on top of this, there is another trend right now in Spain. Many regions, many comunidades autónomas are approving laws trying to implement a more progressive approach towards housing policies. And the result is that all these laws, without no exception, are being taken under the Constitutional Court and they are immediately suspended. So we have this fight right now between these two legitimacies in terms of democracy, the local or regional powers and the state level. Other trends that have to be taken into account is that even though we have a very weak social and affordable housing system, in the past we have produced many units of one type of non-market housing called vivienda protegida, protected housing. It goes this way. You were granted several public subsidies and aids. You produce a type of unity that is going to be sold at a regulated price, and after a few years, several years, the unit could be sold at market prices. So what at the beginning was affordable, public, and ownership, this is true because it was designed that way from the beginning. At the end, it became ownership of private houses. And we have done as many as 6 million units in the last decades in a country with 25.5 million units. So roughly 1/5 of of the whole stock. It was to some extent social or public protected or publicly guided. The main pieces of legislation right now at the federal level, they are trying to protect the bailout of our financial system, because as it happened here, I think, in Ireland, the main problem of the banking system was the real estate market and all their implications towards mortgages and financial risks in general terms. And let's compare the next two figures. We have a public state housing program, very weak. At its peak, it went up to 1.5 billion euros, 1 billion euros and a half. And I understood from the previous conference that your level of public expenditure in this matter is double this, around 3 billion, I'm sorry. So the problem is that you are a 6 million inhabitants country, and we are a 45 million inhabitants country. So the difference between your public expenditure and ours is roughly 500 euros per person and year, and in our case is 35 euros per person and year. So this very low public expenditure has been cut down by 70%. So right now we are below half of the public expenditure that we had in the past. And if you take into account the size of the bailout, of the banking system bailout, the amount of money that we have used in this problem is it equals around 150 years of public housing policies as far as public expenditure goes. So the effort in the financial bailout is extremely big, and the effort in the construction of a public housing system is weaker than ever. And then the last trend is that, in theory, there is not a policy in housing in the European Union. This is the theory. But in reality, it is true that right now the more mature systems are being put in jeopardy because they are being accused of being a way of state aid. So systems like the Dutch system right now is under threat. And other systems that are weaker and are trying to emerge, they have the problem that we are constrained by memorandums of understanding or other types of systems that the European Union uses to constrain our local authorities, the action of our local authorities. I will go directly to just naming the main housing problems that we have right now in the city of Barcelona, not national-wide, in the city of Barcelona. The first problem that we have, which is the more severe and self-evident, is the crisis in forced evictions. The second one is the combination of all these trends: gentrification, tourism, financial speculation, not to confuse with financial investment, which are two different things. And at the end, all this causes a really, really great increase in rental prices that is causing many social and spatial problems. Then, as a third problem, we have the situation of our public and affordable stock. In the city of Barcelona, where we live around 1.7 million persons, and where there are 684 principal residences, houses that are being used for the residence of a person of a family or a family. Out of those 684,000 units, only 10,000 are either public, cooperative, or limited profit, and most of them, almost all of them, they are public. So our public stock is extremely small, and it has no chance to be structural or to have a structural impact nowadays. The fourth problem, which is a very silent problem in terms of housing, because nor the market neither the administrations, at least in Spain, we are giving a response to this phenomena, is that we have an aging population. The average age right now is already very high, and the prospects for the future is that it will be even higher. And the pictures in this slide, this is a facility that is owned by the municipality. It's a very successful facility because it allows all people to live in a very nice environment. Their life expectancy is going up and the satisfaction is really high, but we only have a problem. We have 1,000 of these units around the city, and we are building right now an extra 900, but we can't afford to extend this model for the whole city. So we don't have right now a solution between the private homes and the institutions, the collective institutions. So we have to develop something in between, and right now we don't have the response. And the fifth problem, and it's the fifth because in other places of Spain it could be the first one, but in the city of Barcelona it's not the first problem because the city is very compact and the market right now is really on fire, so everything is sold or rented. The fifth problem is that we have some vacant or underutilized units. We are carrying out a survey in different neighborhoods of the city, and the average that right now we are finding is that less than 1.5% of the total is vacant or underutilized. And this is a figure that doesn't allow to structurize a policy on vacant housing because it's not that frequent as it is in other places. So what are we doing right now? Well, we have carried a planning process of over a year, which is something not very normal in Spain, as far as housing is concerned. And we have done a strategic plan for the next 10 years, which again is not very normal in Spain because usually public planification of housing, it amounts usually 3-4 years, no more. And we have gone to 10 years because this is a structural problem, and we will only get solutions from a structural point of view. And I don't have time to go through the whole thing, but the presentation will be available if you are interested. The main features of what we are doing right now could be summarized with several words. First, information. It could be funny or strange to hear, but data mastering is being pursued by the private sector. The public sector doesn't have enough data of good quality in order to make decisions and also in order to influence the market. Let's use this example. A platform that offers rental in the city with only 9,000 units, they think that they are able to describe the situation of the market, and they appoint normal prices, and they are being heard by the press and by the people. So in fact, they have some capacity to set the prices. So the first thing that we have done is to establish an observatory on housing between we, the city, and the metropolitan area in order to produce our own data and to be able to establish what is going on in the market with some independence from private sources. The second thing that we are doing is we are carrying out a program on rental allowances. We know that it's not a structural response. It has to do with emergency. It has to do with forced evictions, with people not being able to pay their rents nowadays, and probably this amount of money, if it's spent in other programs, will allow you to have some stock that could be used for decades. But we have the problem, this social problem, right now, so we are using federal money, regional money, money from the regional government, and, which is something new, we are using money from the city. And we are the only city right now in Spain that is using their own budget in order to finance rental allowances. The third thing that we are doing is that we are trying to push as much as we can the construction, the building of a public stock that is devoted almost completely to rental. For you, it could sound absolutely normal. The local authorities building and managing stock in rental. For us, almost all those terms are not very normal because we haven't had much local intervention, and most of our intervention has been for ownership, not for rental. So the program that we are carrying out right now of constructing 14,000 new units, 8,800 of them directly constructed by the City Housing Public Company, is not very normal. Actually, we are the only city doing it, and we are financing the whole thing with our own resources and with the resources of the European Bank of Investment, because public banks in Spain, they don't exist. Well, there is one, but it is not active in housing. So we are producing 80% for rent, 20% for, we call it right of surface, but it could be said also lease. And then we are working 30% of our objectives with other actors. We want to introduce diversity. We don't want to be the only players. We want cooperatives, foundations, housing associations. Actually, we won't reject any method that it works. So what we're doing right now is we are providing with land and with other financial aids to these type of actors in order to develop rental stock and lease stock. The fourth thing that we are doing is we are pursuing a policy in rehabilitation, which again, maybe for Barcelona is not new, but for other Spanish cities is rather rare, because we we budget and finance the policy with our own resources. Right now we are trying to move from a very universal and unconditional policy in rehabilitation subsidies to a more targeted policy in order to be able to meet social, environmental, and territorial standards. And the fifth and last thing that we are doing is something that is very strange for a city hall, or at least for a city hall in Spain in terms of housing. First of all, we are creating the idea of housing discipline. There are laws about housing that they have to be respected. And local authorities, they have to look after those standards. In general terms, I would say that constructing of houses in Spain is a very regulated activity, and the standard of quality is quite high. There is a big differences between the new units or the units produced in the last 1-2 decades and stock that belongs to previous decades. And we have probably a very strict standard in terms of new developments and not that strict in terms of rehabilitation. But we have also homework to do in the field of emptiness, underutilized, not directed to the satisfaction of the needs of the common public, related to speculation, to funds that are buying big parts of our cities. So the idea of discipline and standards for us is important, and we are carrying out a battle. It's not a cruel battle, it's just a legal battle, but we have a problem with Airbnb. Airbnb is right now controlling half of the offer every night of the rental stock in the city of Barcelona. We rent around 40,000 units every year, and Airbnb is able to offer every night 20,000 units. We have a policy with the rest of the platforms that is being respected by them, is that they have to demand the permit to the person who is advertising his house, because in order to do tourist rental, you have to have a municipal permit. So if the platform asks for the permit, only the units with permit will be able to be advertised. There are only 10,000 permits in the whole city, so only Airbnb, only one operator, is advertising 75% of its offer is illegal because they don't have permits. So what is the situation right now is that all the platforms are complying with this requirement. They are demanding, they are asking their clients for the permit. If they don't have permit, the unit is not advertised. We have almost 100 inspectors going around the city making the comprobations that the units are being used correctly, and if not, they are imposing fines. Some of the fines are really high, 30,000 euros per unit. So we are, in a way, trying to cope with this problem. Conclusions, and you have to allow me that in less than 24 hours, maybe I didn't got the correct impression about your system, but let's say that these are three raw conclusions open to discussion and maybe open to sophistication. First of all, I think there is room for technical exchange between your country and my country. For example, even though sometimes we don't realize, we are not bad doing town planning. Our town planning is not bad. Our public space is not bad in general terms. And you have a device that we don't have. You have housing associations. You give for granted that they are there, that they are small, that they are not structural, that they could be better, that they could be bigger, but you have them. We have zero, none. All the provision is done or by the municipal authorities or other public bodies. So I think there is room for exchange. Second thing is that there are many networks around Europe where once in a while we evade from our domestic problems and we try to exchange knowledge and we try to do lobby together. And I think that, for example, Housing Europe, which is the network of public, cooperative and limited profit companies, or Eurocities, which is the network of cities working in housing, are of the most interest for us in Spain, and I assume that they could be of interest for you. And let me introduce two adjectives to this idea of networking. First of all, there is a lot of room for cross-lobbying, and for cross-lobbying I mean that my state authorities are going to believe more you than me. If you tell them that there are things going on here in Ireland, that you have public banking, that you have housing associations, that you have a national housing agency, that you are trying to implement new devices and new schemes, they will listen to you more than to me. So maybe once in a while we will be calling you and asking for help. And the second thing is that we shouldn't be doing lobby in Brussels by ourselves, one country after the other. We have similar problems in different systems, but they are not that different, so maybe we should lobby all together. And my two final remarks that are very obvious, but I think that your country and my country, they really symbolize this problem. We want affordable housing for all. I think most citizens wouldn't have any problem to relate to this claim, affordable housing for all and luxury housing for whoever wants it and can pay it. That's not a problem. But market is not the correct device to provide housing for all. There is hard, empirical, scientific evidence that they are not capable of doing this, and we have to accept it. By the way, the public administrations, they are either the tool to do it all by themselves. We need a combination of both things. And the second thing is that markets by themselves, they are unable to remain stable. Housing markets, by themselves, they do this. And in order to sanitize markets, we need to introduce diversity. We need public, cooperative, and limited profit actors. And you lack that, and we lack that. So we have to do it. If we can do it together, probably we will be doing it much better. Thanks for your attention, for your time, and for the fact that I went over my time. But you have to excuse that probably in Spanish I will be a little bit faster.